Welcome, trainers, to the PokeSphere. We're your destination for in-depth Pokemon news, community discussions, and editorial content. We're passionate about this franchise, and we're here to share our insights and connect with fellow fans. So let's talk Nintendo. Today's episode, we're going to go ahead and jump into our thoughts about that Nintendo Switch 2 drop, as well as go over some information that wasn't covered in the Direct, and some questionable decisions made by the company. And once again, we are joined by artist extraordinaire Subarashii. Welcome, Suba.
Hello, guys.
And let's jump in. So we had our Switch 2 reveal finally, and it was an interesting hour-long presentation of mostly games, some tech reviews, and we finally get to find out what that C button is. And overall, I mean, I don't know about you guys, but my initial reaction was that there was quite a bit that I did enjoy from that, but of course, at the time of recording, we've gotten more information, and it's kind of soured things for me just a touch. But
Initial thoughts? If we're going like right after I finish watching it, it's like, man, my wallet gonna be crying that month, like ugly crying that month, because that's a lot of money. That and the Final Fantasy Magic Gathering collab comes out that same month, so my wallet gonna be ugly crying. Pleading me to stop. Please don't do it. But in all like fairness as well, or seriousness-ish, yeah, I wasn't too happy with the prices, honestly. Direct gets like a B, though, not too bad. I'm a little bit mad because I didn't see no new Fire Emblem title, but that's just me.
this has been the major pitch I have heard since that Direct. There was no Fire Emblem. That game is way more popular than I have ever thought, because I've never played it.
Oh, dude, Fire Emblem's great. Yeah, my opinion, easily the best Nintendo Direct we've had, even since pre-COVID. A lot of things were announced that I didn't expect, but even though I didn't expect them, it sort of makes sense. Hardware-wise, phenomenal, but how they utilize that hardware, I mean, it's yet to be seen. So I'll have to be a bit pensive on that until it actually comes out and I can get my hands on it. Price-wise, it's up there. I mean, for me at least, it's slightly cheaper than a PS5, so I feel like that's a good point to sort of look at it from. So it's almost the same price, but not quite, so I'm not mad at it. A bit indifferent, but it could have been a lot more expensive, I think.
Talking about more expensive, with them putting the pre-releases here in the USA on hold, that's all that I'm worried about. Look, $450 for the powered-up Switch that we've all been asking for, and top of some new features with the mouse-like feature, which is going to absolutely revolutionize the way first-person shooters are going, and design-like games like Animal Crossing, Sims, etc. are going to play out. I know other content creators mentioned Civilizations. The Switch experience was absolutely terrible, but looking forward to having mouse interaction on the Switch 2 might change the entire thing. I've always been a role-playing, adventure, driving, fighting, and strayed away heavily from shooting games, barely dabbling into third-person and avoiding first-person, but the Switch 2 might actually change that. And when it came to the interactive play abilities that I saw with them introducing the game chat, I was so excited. We have friends over at the Gimme Ghoul Radio, shout out to them. They do game nights where they go on these most obscure adventures on titles that I've either never heard of, never dabbled in, and it's actually got me wanting to start trying to pick up titles and get more into general gaming outside of the Pokemon franchise, just for that camaraderie. And having the video and the game chat integrated onto the Switch is just going to make this a whole lot easier for community focused events, as well as the content creators, for us being able to record and be interactive with the viewers.
And speaking of Gimme Ghoul Radio, we have, like I said, Subarashii joining us, Captain Suba. Welcome aboard. Who does Sea of Thieves Night with over on their server. So, what were your thoughts about the Direct when it after it first
Very exciting direct. I was very hyped for it when they showed up the console, which we already knew what it looked like. Looks very slick, very nice. The magnets with the Joy-Cons is genius. I am very happy that it's 120 FPS. Very well done, Nintendo. I'll give you a round of applause for that, because no one thought that was actually going to happen. So yes. Expecting the games that I saw was good. Hollow Knight came up for like random, like because when we were watching the direct, it froze for some of us, which was weird for the American stream. So we had to hop onto the UK stream. Most of us did. And then we just see Hollow Knight. Oh wait, Hollow Knight's here! Oh my goodness! And that's coming out this year, which is really good. So thank you for that, for the direct. Thank you. And we get an exclusive Switch 2 game of From Software, which is amazing. So yeah, so technically a Dark Souls game, which is exclusive for the Switch 2. So that's going to be amazing. So I'm very happy what we saw. Overall, the Switch 2 looks amazing. The price is fair. I'll say the price is okay. I was expecting it to be more, but obviously what's happening now, which I don't like to say, the things that are happening with trading, whatever it is. I kind of feel sorry for you American fans, it's like, I wish it could be better, but yeah, it is, because obviously my wallet is going to be crying as well, like everyone else in this call is, which is crazy. But yeah, the Switch looks like a good console. I'm definitely going to get it.
I have to admit, you guys brought up some great points. There were some, I think the really thing that really floored me is the third-party support. There's huge third-party support that the Switch didn't get on its launch. Where, they announced Borderlands 4, they announced that like you said, that exclusive game from Software. We're getting the Final Fantasy remake onto Nintendo's on a Nintendo system finally. And these were things that people kind of didn't think were ever going to happen, or if they did happen, they were going to be muddled down via like they did with Wolfenstein: The New Order. If you played it, like, it ran okay, but it had to really tone down the graphics for it to run on the Switch. So it's looking like what we're getting as far as third-party support looks like it's going to be coming out nice and clean and crisp. Everything looked good as far as the direct went. The price, I was kind of expecting it to be around that ballpark, especially after seeing some of the graphics that were coming out. And so yeah, like, overall, I think this was by far one of the best directs we had in a long time as far as everything presented. But we're going to be moving into a slight bit of where we found a few things lacking, now that we've had time to digest and look at a few things.
Before we get into that, Draco, I have a question for you.
Yeah.
It's a question for everyone, but I'm curious to hear what you have to say about this, because you've made your stance on digital versus physical very clear in the past, on multiple occasions. So I'm sure the older viewers are probably aware of it, but Switch to physical games. Not all of them are going to have games on the cartridge. Yeah, some of the cartridges are only going to be like physical digi-keys, and you have to actually download the game. So none of the game data will be on the cartridge when you get it.
You really want my opinion on that particular aspect? Because I can give it to you right now.
Yeah, because I think it's actually quite a big thing, because it's a bit of a slimy way to get people to essentially buy digital or download digital, however you want to phrase it, but still along those lines.
In my opinion, it's crap, because the issue I'm having with this is that you're not getting a physical copy, you're getting a digital copy. I don't know how that's, like, what's the whole point of giving you something that has to be slotted into the Nintendo Switch, and then you still have to download something. Yeah, it's called game key cards. What they're doing here is, after you've downloaded, you can play the game by inserting the game key card into the system, and it starts like a physical game card, but you still require the download of the actual game. And they will be stipulating it on the packaging, which I'm kind of thankful for, because now I know which games I'm going to avoid, because I will not be buying these games. I am, as you pointed out, I am a very staunch supporter of physical software. this isn't physical software. This is digital software with a physical dongle. So to me, it doesn't make any sense for them to do this game key card aspect.
That's a stupid term, because obviously this is like a little term thing. Oh, game key card. That's their little term that they use.
Yeah, it's just I don't like it.
The key card is infinitely worse than digital, because even if you were a family or whatever, and let's say your dad had an account and that's who ran the eShop or whatever, or the purchases from the eShop, you could still log into that account on the various switches and download that game and still play it. You didn't need... It wasn't like physical where you needed the actual cartridge. Now you have all of the downsides and none of the benefits, because little Timmy, if he wants to play Pokemon ZA, he might have it downloaded on his Switch too, but he won't be able to play it until his bigger brother Johnny is finished using it for whatever he's doing. Well, obviously playing the same game, but all of the downsides with none of the upsides.
That's the thing with Nintendo. There's always a catch. There's always a catch. When when the Switch came, right, Switch 2, oh, amazing. Oh my goodness. They increased the space in the game for it to from what was in the Switch 1? Was it like, how many gigabytes did it already have?
So do we
Yeah, I had like 30 around there, and they jumped that to 256. Bravo, Nintendo. That was amazing. A massive jump. Absolutely amazing. More space in my Switch too. Brilliant. The catch is that if you want more space, you can only use an exclusive SD card. A micro SD card. Only express cards. Are you kidding me, Nintendo? They cost twice as much as regular ones. I understand the upgrade of it, but obviously they're obviously the newest ones. They obviously can't be compatible with the previous old ones. Are you kidding me?
Well, to be fair on that, I get what you're saying. And I went looking for those express cards. The Switch 2 can hold up to a 2 terabyte card, which phenomenal space. That's more space on my laptop that I use to edit these videos. However, I couldn't find somebody that makes it. And the ones I did find, they were like in the ballpark of about $150 to $200.
Yeah, that's extra $100 to with your Switch 2 you have to buy as well. That's another extra $100 added up with the Switch you're gonna get. So that's kind of bad, but obviously you don't really have to do it unless you have loads of games on the Switch. But it is kind of a bummer.
Well, here's the thing, like you said, there's always a catch with Nintendo. Is they're going to give you more memory space, but now none of the games are on the card, so now you need more of that space on your actual system in order to store the downloaded whole entire game and only use the e-card to access it now.
I'm going to play devil's advocate. Realistically, you don't need a terabyte or a 2 terabyte SD card with the Nintendo Switch. Games aren't as big as they are on PS5 and Xbox One. And using the express cards, there's a bunch of people that make them. Off the top of my head, Lexar's the first one that comes to mind. I think Samsung makes them as well, because of what they're using to upscale to 4K, which is, I think there's not a shadow of a doubt in anyone's mind that it isn't DLSS.
Nintendo has not closed it.
No, but the way it's set up, and specifically needing XD cards, means it needs extremely fast read times.
I'll defer to your judgment because you actually know more about this aspect than I do.
Not that much, a little bit more, but I wouldn't say too much. All sort of makes sense. So, like, if you don't want to spend, I think Lexar's terabyte express card is, I think, $200, somewhere around there. Might be less. It's somewhere between $100 and $200. Realistically, you're only gonna spend that money if you have the money to spend it. You're not in any position where, you know, it would break the bank. Maybe it would. Maybe you just made a silly purchase, but most people probably go for an extra like 256 or even 128.
I'm gonna throw a little bit more on this. So a while back, one of our previous episodes, back when we were under Podcast, we did a video where we were discussing about the size of games. We were discussing the next system and the game cards themselves. Now, we know that the game cards between the Switch and the Switch 2 are identical. And in my research, I had discovered that Nintendo went to a company called Micronix. They're the ones that make the game cards for Nintendo, and Nintendo had a specific sizing done. They came in a variety of sizes up to 64 gigs. So here is where I can understand that Nintendo's going to be driving up the price of the games. It's understood, especially if they're going to be dipping into these much higher capacity game cards. So this is why I have an issue with these key card games. There's absolutely zero reason for them to have these things exist if you have the capacity of a 64 gig game card. You're already charging $90 for a video game. So what is the point of having these bogus dongle games? Because apparently, if I'm understanding this correctly, you cannot play these games unless the card is in the slot.
Yeah.
That really irks the crap out of me.
There's no point.
Yeah.
I understand. Yeah, I get that, Draco. Yeah, I understand it now. Yeah, you summed up perfectly right there, Draco.
Yeah, it's pointless.
I mean, it is essentially an exercise in futility, but also it'd be interesting to see how it works, because I can't see... Actually, no, wait, I take that back. I can see Nintendo justifying paying the equivalent of $90 for a key card, but they could do something where it writes some data onto the cartridge, maybe just basic data to run the game. But I mean, that's yet to be seen. All we know is what's on the website.
Right, which it says once the game is downloaded, you're ready to play. An internet connection is only required when you launch the game for the first time. After this, the game can be started even without an internet connection. However, like regular physical software, the game key card must be inserted into the system in order to play the game. That is where I have the problem.
Now you can lose a digital game too.
It is essentially just a word soup that says nothing other than you need this to play the game.
I did think about this like quite a bit. Like, okay, so if we're talking about like the game prices, right, being like at around like whatever $80-$90, depending on what they do with it, I do feel like it's not bad pricing, because like I've noticed like a lot of things I've bought like over like maybe like the recent games, like I always end up buying something like the deluxe edition or something, so that always ends up to like $90. So, you know, that comes with all like whatever maybe possible DLC or whatever, and whatever other items are included into it. But that's only thinking at the part like if I'm buying $90 on this Nintendo Switch game or whatever, everything better be in there. Like no DLC at that point anymore. Or like if you can put DLC in there, just make them like $1-2 trinkets or accessories or something like that, you know? If like everything that's part of that game is already in there on that cartridge or not cartridge, then like by all means, you know, maybe I'll actually be spending like $80 on that thing. But it's still kind of like cruddy, because like I have been watching videos like on other people's opinions as well, and it's like, yeah, Nintendo's doing this right now. Like they have like, you know, the $90 Mario Kart game, and then now they have like the $70 Donkey Kong game coming out, which is kind of weird to me. It's like, I don't know why you're pricing Donkey Kong at 70, but this Mario Kart game is like going to be like 90. But I think that just goes to show that, like, you know, that Nintendo is the one that's making the prices for this, or for these games coming out. So like, I don't know what they're trying to do. Are they trying to start some kind of like thing where like, oh, now we can make games for like and charge people like this expensive because people will buy them regardless, kind of thing, you know, like, or at least some people will buy them regardless of the price. But I don't know, it's kind of cruddy. It does suck. So in terms of the machine though itself, I think everybody was expecting it to be like $399, right? USD. But yeah, it ended up becoming $449 USD for the you know, whatever the base product comes with. In all honesty, at first I thought that was too expensive for a Switch, and then I had to take a look at it again. Like after mulling over it, I was like, you know what? $449 for a device that claims, or maybe does, in handheld mode, put you at like 1080p, up to 120 FPS, or 60 FPS on high note. I don't remember what they said. And then when it's docked, it can get you to 4K, 60 FPS. It's like, you know what? That's actually not bad. Because people paying like a ROG Ally or like a Steam Deck for like $800+, and I don't even think they reach like 1080p or something like that, right? So it's like I think Nintendo has like a very wonderful machine right now, and the price for it is actually pretty good.
I also want to talk about the biggest load of rubbish that I have ever seen in that direct. Like, one of the only things I have an issue with. For the Nintendo Switch, we got ARMS. For the Nintendo Switch 2, that drag X thing where you use both of the Joy-Cons and their mouse thing, it's just the biggest load of rubbish I have ever seen. Like, no hate to the people who actually do it in real life, because I think the real life version is really cool. But the game itself is just nonsense.
I thought we were gonna get a DJing game, honestly. When first,
What about that? So what really made me mad? That tutorial game has to cost money to buy it. That Switch tutorial game that should be free costs money to play.
Okay, once again, I'm going to play devil's advocate. It is nonsense that it costs money, but realistically, if you pay for that, you are an idiot. Because most of that information, if not all of it, is in the booklet that comes in the box with that will come in the box with the Nintendo Switch.
with the booklet,
They should have done what the Wii did with, a free copy of Mii Sports. Oh my goodness. And literally what PlayStation did with Astro Bot, you know?
That was actually one of the things that I kept hearing. It's like, it's Astrobot, it's Astrobot. Like, yeah, why are we paying? I don't care that it's $6. Why are we paying for a tutorial on, hey, the cool things your new system can do? I just dropped $450 on a system. That thing better just be free.
Yeah. $6? Okay, cool. If you want to buy that, sure. If it's $6, yeah, you can, I guess. You can afford, but it'd be better if it was free, okay?
It's what they should have had, like what the conventions were. It's not a game. It's not an actual story. It's not a combat competitive thing. It is a tech demo that they should have been using as a marketing tool back in the day when gaming conventions and stuff like that were a thing.
It's not even a game. It's just like, tiny little mini game. I could play something like that on flipping like for free on YouTube. Like those little mini YouTube games. They're literally what they are.
Don't get me wrong, I agree it should be free, but like if you actually buy it, you deserve to have your bank card taken away. Like, without a shadow of a doubt. Like, people just can't read anymore, and Nintendo is capitalizing on it. So like, in some regards, good to them, make your money, pop off, queen. I think it says more about the people who actually buy it than Nintendo themselves.
I don't want to sound like we're completely dogpiling on everything about the Switch 2, because there's something I do want to touch on in shortly, that I appreciate Nintendo actually taking the time to correct. But as far as what we're discussing right now, this topic, this is some of the more questionable decisions I have. And again, I have to look at this from two minds. Stockholder in Nintendo, but I'm a gamer, and the two sides of me, like, I can see why they did it, but it makes no sense from a business standpoint, because you're alienating the very foundation you need to survive. I understand $450. There is a bit that went into this system, and I mean they're still playing the specs very close to the chest, and I've had people complaining about the fact that it's an LCD. Why is it an LCD? Well, LCDs are cheap, and whatever they've got under the hood that's processing all of the game information might be where they spent their money. And does it suck that, hey, we only get 256 gigs in the system? It's a lot better than what we got for the Switch, but it should have been more. And I agree with you, Suba. I think, 256, that should have been what we had for the Switch. We should be getting way more for the Switch too. Fine. You know what? I'll take my compromises where I can get them when it comes to a system, provided that the performance of the games holds true. If people get this system and they're playing Mario Kart and it's choppy, or the Wi-Fi absolutely blows chunks, now I'm going to have an issue with that $450. And, due to personal circumstances right now, I won't even be looking at a Switch 2 till maybe the holidays. The battery life, according to the information on Nintendo's own website, is there's a charge time of 3 hours provided that the system is in sleep mode. I believe that the battery life out is anywhere between 2 to 6 hours, depending on the performance.
I'm literally melting here, like, bruh, less than the Switch One.
What the battery life for the Joy-Cons are 20 hours, depending on usage, which, all right, cool, yay. Approximately battery life 2 to 6.5 hours. These are rough estimates. Battery life will depend on the games you play.
Okay.
So, I mean, it's still roughly in the same lines. But here's the thing: the CPU and the GPU, custom processors made by NVIDIA. So that is all they're willing to tell you. So none of the tech specs that we have seen, the rumored tech specs, we can't put any stock in, because this could be a completely totally different processor. And in a previous episode we discussed it, where they may have used the outer shell for what would have been the Switch Pro and just repurposed the outside parts and put in whole new guts for better gaming. And so on a lot of this, we're gonna have to wait until the system comes out, or you happen to know somebody who was able to make it to one of these events and got their hands on a Switch 2. It's actually happening this weekend while we're recording.
Can I just say something? When the Switch 2 comes out, as we all know, in the first week it will be hacked. Everyone's going to go into that system and say, "Ooh, what's this?" And they're going to do experiments. That's what I'm going to say.
So it's very clear that we're working with some pretty beefy hardware. I mean, even the handheld PCs that we got, I mean, they're quite thick and big, chunky, like bricks, basically. And they also only get, what, like 3 to 6 hours. I mean, my Legion Go lasts me 4.5 hours. So the fact that Nintendo can get that big range from 2 until 6 hours, it is very ambiguous, and, you know, there's a lot of room for error there, and might annoy some people. I mean, it's quite a slim thing, and it looks very light. So I think they've done a phenomenal thing then. I mean, there are ways to extend your battery life, right? You don't need to always play at 120 FPS or full screen brightness, whatever it is. And then on LCD, I think, for the Switch at least, I think LCD is a lot better. I don't really see the point to OLED. I know it looks nicer, but OLED screens get damaged very easily with, like, burn-in and all of that. So I think for the longevity of a first iteration of the console, I think they did really good with LCD and not going straight into OLED.
I agree with that. I can agree with that. Because the screen's going to be bigger anyway than the Switch ones.
So, yeah, so it's all good. Really. It's like an OLED in itself, really.
I think they've got processors like HDR and that in place, so it won't necessarily look like the Switch 1, the first iteration of the Switch 1 did. It will look probably closer to the OLED, but without being OLED.
Like, yeah, so we're having that on the LCD screen. Like, I think, especially with, like, the bigger screen itself now, like, I'm pretty sure everything will still look good regardless. I mean, I don't know about phones nowadays, but the Switch 2 is going to be way bigger than a phone. So I think, you know, being able to see something like some kind of gaming visual quality of that level on the Switch 2 device is probably still going to be amazing, regardless of, like, whatever, you know, even if it had, or whether or not it had an OLED screen.
So the screen in itself is an HDR10 support, and then VRR up to 120 hertz. The wireless is an LAN Wi-Fi 6. There's also Bluetooth, and in TV mode, the Switch 2 can connect using a wired LAN port on the dock.
Wi-Fi 6 is pretty good.
Yeah, I think we're only on Wi-Fi 7 right now, technically, right? Or at least for, like, most devices. So that's actually not that. It's not the most current thing, but it's not bad, and it's definitely a lot better than whatever the Switch had.
Trying to pivot out from more of the negative stuff into the slightly more positive, potentially, are these upgrades. They're upgrade packs. The upgrade packs. So if you've purchased the game like Mario Party Jamboree, Legend of Zelda, you can just purchase, and then at the time of recording, we do not have any pricing, but you can just purchase an upgrade to the Switch 2 edition, and you'll get different content depending on the game. Now, since we don't have any pricing, it's really hard to give an an accurate assessment of this particular aspect of the Switch 2 system and the Switch 2 family. But if it's a range, depending on what you're getting per game, okay, depending on the range, this is good or bad. But if it's going to be a static amount, no matter what game it is, then I think I'm going to be running into some issues, because for games like Mario Party Jamboree and Kirby, you're getting extra content. Whereas for Zelda and for Breath of the Wild and for Tears of the Kingdom, what you're getting isn't as good. And so at that point, it begs to ask, would it be worth the upgrade cost? Is that something that anybody would want to attempt to utilize?
The upgrade is them finally finishing the game. I think this is a lot of developers admitting, and Nintendo themselves admitting, that the Switch was underpowered for a long time and that they could not actually make modern games on that system. And we should have gotten the Switch 2 maybe 3 years ago. That's what I feel that these upgrades really mean. But this also means that the Switch 2 is at least going to be a modern system, so that we will get these modern games that they showed off in the Direct. And we might... The question is, how long is this going to be level of modern gaming before it becomes obsolete, similar to its predecessor?
You know what? I like them. I actually do like them, because I saw the upgrade to Legend ZA. It looks clean. Bravo! I give that a big clap to that. Especially with that 120 FPS on that. It looks really smooth. I was expecting Xenoblade Chronicles to be on there as a new, like, maybe X, because obviously X is already out, and I would have expected to have a version of that. Yeah, I was expecting that to be for Xenoblade, because I know a lot of people were thinking of. So they don't have it though yet. So, but I don't really think they need them anyway, because they're already good. Because X is phenomenal. If you haven't played Xenoblade Chronicles X, it is amazing in that game. And obviously, when that game came out, we actually found out that there's these types of specs that are happening for these games. If you didn't know, there is something, I don't know if I remember, there is something that is involved with that. Yeah, I am actually happy that this is a thing. Obviously, until all that's done, we will get games that are going to be made for the Switch 2, because obviously Gen 10 is going to be made for the Switch 2, so they won't have they won't be getting like an upgraded version, because it's already upgraded. The pricing has got to be different to that, because it's going to add like new content. If a game's going to be like Jamboree, it's going to get new content and a new look, with the upgraded pack for the look of the game. Definitely increase the price. Have a different price to the ones that are just getting no new content in the game but are getting the upgrade. Definitely do that. If they're same price, I don't want it. Terrible decision, Nintendo. If you do that, don't like it.
Terrible decision, gamer, if you buy it.
I don't know, the upgrade packs themselves are very ambiguous. The way I understood it is, so for games that won't have additional content, it'll just give you access to things like the chat features, and all of that software will then be accessible by Switch 1 games. So, I mean, realistically, for that scenario, it can't be more than $10 or the equivalent, right? Like, that just wouldn't make sense. For extra content, certain upgrade packs are $15 to $20 or the equivalent, like, because realistically it is just DLC, so it just depends, where the priorities lie. Good thing is you don't need the upgrade packs to play your Switch 1 games on the Switch 2, or at least according to my understanding. Could be very wrong on that. Yeah, you might be locked out of some features, but you don't really need them. I mean, I would rather, being quite frank, jump in a Discord call with mates than, use the chat function on the Switch 2, but that's just my personal opinion. Just because Discord is what I'm used to. We don't know how the chat function is going to work, if it's going to be great, because it was quite choppy, especially with the camera in the direct shot. So it is really still all up in the air. So I really like them because it gives incentive for people to sort of try out their Switch 1 games on the Switch 2, which I think people would have done irrespective. But that incentive is then a form of extra content. just so you can actually see 100% what those Switch 1 games could have actually looked like, as opposed to what they did look like. Like Suba mentioned, Xenoblade Chronicles X, I think he criminally undersold it, because it is an absolutely phenomenal game, and even with the graphics being what they were, looked really good. So I have no doubt there's going to be some kind of upgrade pack for it. Because why wouldn't there? It was a really good selling game, but also it's Nintendo, kings of curveballs and all of that. But yeah, $10 for basic upgrade pack or the equivalent, and $15 to $20 or the equivalent for upgrade packs that include what is essentially DLC.
I've also been thinking about that as well. Okay, if we're talking about like the games like Kirby, the new Kirby game, the Mario Party Jamboree, I feel like since they are coming with additional content, the price is fine. Honestly, like it's what did they say, like $30 or something?
They didn't.
I think that's fine. But for other games that like Zelda, one of them, having like that little bit extra money for it, and you're only getting like the performance enhancements and like, I don't know, maybe like one little extra thing, it does seem quite like a lot. But didn't they also say something like if you had like Nintendo Switch Online, like you can get it like for free or something for like the smaller ones, if anything, or like the smaller updates? I'm okay with the pricing for it, but I just want to know like how else are they going to handle other stuff, because I know they do have like the free updates for certain games, but yeah.
Well, we don't have a cost yet for them. They've not announced it, and there's nothing on the website as far as I can find. However, they did say that Nintendo Switch Online Plus expansion pack members get access to the following upgrade packs at no additional cost. You must have the physical or digital version of the game to download its upgrade pack. Active membership required, which is both for Zelda Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom. So you get those for free. Which other interesting feature that they did announce, which honestly I have forgotten I even have this app on my phone because of how unused it was, and it's the Nintendo Switch app, which, if any of you remember, was part of this octopus looking design that Nintendo concocted when the Switch first launched on how we could voice chat with our friends while we're playing Switch, like Discord, or even what was the precursor to Discord? That doesn't exist. Apparently, with the Nintendo Switch app, you're not only going to be able to utilize that with some games, like in Zelda, where it turns your game into a GPS, which honestly I think it's kind of cool because it kind of gives you a little bit more immersion because you have your own little personal Sheikah Slate. But in a video that they dropped yesterday, Parental Controls, which I wanted to touch on. Now, one of the things that we were discussing with that I was discussing with Unseelie King and Make Yourself over at Game Eagle Radio was the fact that when the 3DS was launched, they launched it with a free to play app. It's called Swap Notes. The problem was there were very unsavory people who were using that app to target children, and so it was quickly yanked from the system, never to be seen again. And it was one of the items of concern that I had, because my niece is getting into gaming. She's got her own Switch, and her parents are always monitoring what she does. But how do you control when your child is talking to somebody? How do you know who they're talking to? And one of the things that the Switch app does is, if you do have an account, a Switch 2 that has a minor on your account, you can set not only times for when they can play, how long they can play, but it also allows you to see who they want to talk to, and allows you to allow or disengage any kind of chatting with someone. So it gives parents a lot more control, and it keeps kids safer. And I have to give credit where it's due. Nintendo did a really good job at thinking this a bit through. Now, how it works in application, we have yet to see, but the fact that they did throw this out there is honestly comforting, and probably gives me a bit more reason of why I do appreciate some of the crazy things that Nintendo does do, like creating a cell phone app like this.
I think in general, right, Nintendo have been sort of on the better side of like parental controls. My opinion on parental controls personally is I'm in both camps. I believe that parents should have the ability to, monitor and keep in touch with what their kids are doing in the way that is being introduced to the Nintendo Switch 2. But also, there's going to be people that find ways to circumnavigate that, and in reality, it's not very difficult. So I feel like for parents that feel the need to use parental controls, I think they also need to have a conversation with their kids about like internet safety, which in my experience, I've only got a handful of friends who have kids, and very young ones at that. They've been pretty good with it. So I think in general, parents might be pretty good at the whole explanation thing. Yeah, kids are little monsters. They never listen to their parents. So it's good to have all these things in place.
I think, yeah, I feel like Nintendo's at least got it down, like at least for like the parental control thing. They can only do so much, so to speak, and then everything else is like probably up to the parents' job at that point. And then whatever happens, well, I mean, maybe you can blame your kid on that.
I mean, that's basically where I was going to go, is there's only so much that you can do, like, unless you have some sort of delay, AI filter, so that it's monitoring not just who they're contacting, but what the topic of conversation is. And then at what point are you drawing a line that can also be a violation of privacy, not just for the child, but in general? I'm not talking about from their parents. I'm talking about data harvesting and information resale. Even when it comes to minors and stuff, that's still a prevalent threat. And if anything that's being used can be hacked, and that could also be an issue. But that's also getting into some various conspiracy wormholes as well. Irregardless, that's going to be an argument that the general population could have, that if these things are going to be prevalent. I know people that's sure to cover every instance of a web camera in their household when they're not playing on music because of the fear that it could be hacked.
I just want to clarify a few things. The app in itself will notify the parent, hey, so-and-so, your child wants to talk to so-and-so. And you'll see their game icon and the name underneath. And it's, do you allow it? Do you not? It also turns around and it lets you restrict, because one of the functionalities that they did introduce in the Direct was the camera function. So if you do happen to have a Switch camera, is that camera going to be turned on or off? You can actually decline video chatting for your minor accounts, and it will give you the chat history of who they've been talking to, as far as how many people were in that chat and who specifically was in that chat. But as for the contents of the chat, doesn't say that you can actually listen in, but the fact that you at least know who they're talking to, when they're talking to, and how they're talking to them, I think is at least an idea to give parents a sense of, all right, this is who my kid is talking to, this is what they're playing right now. It does allow for some independence, because obviously as your kid is growing up, you kind of want them to be a little bit more independent, so you don't have to be on top of them. But when they're younger, first getting into gaming, of course you definitely want to monitor what they're doing, who they're talking to, what they're saying, what's being said back and forth. So and that does fall on the parents. But the fact that Nintendo gives you these resources to help you be a parent is good, but it is not a and I'm going to preface this, it is not a replacement for parenting. It's one of the things that I love my niece's parents for. They monitor her, they give her independence when she wants it, but they monitor what she does and who she's talking to at all times. So at the very least, they have, and they, if something should happen, they're at least somewhat in the know, and it builds the trust with her that if something does come up that does bother her, that she has someone that she can come and talk to.
So yeah, you're exactly right, Draco. So yeah, that's really what I can really say, because obviously I don't have kids or anything, but I obviously their steps of like making sure that they're safe and all that, all good, very good. But obviously I don't want to be, obviously we don't want to have too much, is it right to say okay to have too much parental guide and all that, like say obviously extra safety, of course, because obviously the problem is as well, hackers and all that. I actually don't like hackers, hackers suck. But yeah, but obviously the camera and all that, they like what Gurren said, the hacker can get into the camera, even though I'm not going to get one. But
we've done some pretty hard critical view of Nintendo, some of their decisions, and of course we've given credit where it's due with their stuff. I really appreciated the whole, hey, guess what's being added to the Nintendo Switch 2 library if you have NSO? GameCube games. And I'm like, yay, GameCube games. And I saw Pokemon Coliseum and XD Gale, and I'm like, is it going to be compatible with home? That's all I care about.
Yeah, I finally get to play those games.
That's why I say I get to finally play these games.
The Switch 2 has a lot going for it. You've got the announcement for Metroid Prime 4. You've seen the enhancements for Metroid Prime 4. You've gotten titles like Mario Kart World, which I'm going to segue for half a second. The open world aspect of Mario Kart 4. Tell me, was I the only person that was screaming about that one? Because I was jamming really hard.
I kept screaming Bubblegum Rally, Mario Bubblegum Rally.
In terms of screaming, no screaming here, but I was impressed with like what they came up with for it. I was not expecting an open world Mario Kart game, and well, yeah.
Open world, really good. Does it fit a Mario Kart game? Not really. But it's going to be cool to see how it works, and I'm really excited for it. But I'll tell you what I'm more excited for: the Kirby racing game. That's just chef's kiss right there.
So my whole thing is I'm really hoping that they institute some sort of endurance. Other than drift racing in general, when it comes to racing, I like endurance racing, where you have to strategically make your way through from point A to point B. And that's what Bubblegum Rally is for any viewers or any of you that don't know what that term means. So when I saw an open world Mario game, that's immediately where my thought was, where this isn't going to just be track to track. This is going to be, you pick 4 tracks and you have point A, point B, point C, point D, and point E. And whoever finishes at point E wins. And you have to monitor your gas. You have to find the shortest or quickest routes through, etc., etc.
Yeah, they did say that too.
Yeah, X, do I have some news for you?
Oh yeah, it's not that extravagant. I get.
Mario Kart World does have that. It's called knockout races.
Yeah,
That actually, like where you have gas or something.
I don't know about the fuel aspect of it. There must be more to it than just racing from point A to point C, and at various checkpoints people get knocked out.
If you think so, the race is going to take up half an hour basically to complete.
I'd imagine more if it's going to be you have to travel so if the first track is point A to point B, and then you have to go from point B to point C in order to start the second race, and there's 4 tracks.
So the race doesn't end basically until it does. Basically,
There's no loading screen between races.
Yeah.
that's crazy. They didn't explain this in the direct. If I'm not,
yeah, no, they did. They did.
they did. They said obviously okay. They said it in a very stupid way. I have to admit, 'cause obviously I didn't understand it.
They did touch on it just a little bit, but yeah.
Yeah, it was very quick.
So I'm lifting confused because obviously you have free loops, free round. You got 1, 2, 3. You go around the court 3 times. So after the 3, you immediately go to the next race.
Yeah, and you have to make your way there.
Oh, okay.
Remember how some of the tracks, laps, you just had one straight run and then it was broken into 3 different segments? I think Wario's Ski Resort or something like that was a big one. There's going to be a lot more that are built with that in mind, where instead of going loop, 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 you're just going to be making your way through it with small checkpoints in it. And then from that, this is the end of that race. Okay, now make your way to the next one.
That's okay. Got you. He's still driving, I assume, but everyone else is still driving on the way there.
Yeah.
Okay, I like that. There you go. Some finally positive stuff. Here we go.
I'll tell you what I'm really excited about for Mario Kart World. No more Yoshi Teddy Buggy strats. Because you can't change individual parts on the carts anymore.
I don't like that, Lou.
But you can customize your characters.
There might be some kind of battle pass.
Maybe.
What if they no longer individual stats? And now it's just across the board, this is how you all race. So they eliminate meta from it completely. Would they do that?
I don't know. It's still pretty early to tell what they're going to be doing with that. But I mean, all I know is that you can pick and choose the cart you're running, and you can customize the way your character looks to an extent. Because they showed Peach in like 4 different outfits. She's got more changicles than I do. Anyway.
So they're going Libre Pikachu with this whole thing? We're going to get cosplay Pikachu?
Pretty much. Cosplay Cow. That's going to be my new favorite character. I won't drop any spoilers, but what I will say is, after watching someone who went to the tech demos, there's new power-ups in Mario Kart World.
Ooh. It's going to suck that I won't get this system on launch. But the other thing that I was really pleasantly surprised, and I was kind of expecting it for the Switch, but better late than never. Nintendo GameCube on NSO. They are putting in some seriously good games. You've got Mario Sunshine, Fire Emblem, Pokemon, Super Mario Strikers, Luigi's Mansion, Chibi Robo, Soul Calibur 2, F-Zero. Like, that is a gargantuan list.
Soul Calibur on its own is worth it.
Heck yeah, play as Link and beat up some people. Let's go.
You know, it's funny because that version of Soul Calibur, depending on what system you picked up, determined what was your hidden character. Because Nintendo had Link, PlayStation had, who was it? Heihachi?
Yeah.
And who did Xbox get?
Spawn.
Yeah, thank you. So it's just weird that this game is coming back. The only way you can play this on the GameCube, and you're only going to see Link.
That's the only saving grace. One of the few couple saving graces for me of keeping a B rating for the Nintendo Direct. Just the fact that I can replay Fire Emblem Path of Radiance. We've never had a GameCube.
I was about to say, it's all about Fire Emblem.
Yeah, I'm serious, man. I'm telling you, that's my childhood game alongside Pokemon, if anything. Like, yeah, like I'm psyched. I'm really hoping they put more GameCube games on there. I don't know what exactly I would be, looking for, because like I said, I never owned a GameCube, so I can't really say I'm too excited. But Coliseum, XD Gale of Darkness, Path of Radiance, I'm already excited for those 3 games in general. So I'm good. I'm good.
So I guess the last aspect of things, that we've talked about the NSO, we've talked about the games, we've talked about the cost of the system, but we didn't talk about the actual cost of games. And that's another item of contention that people brought up. And I don't want to end this on a down note. So like, I'm trying to preface this in such a way that people I hope will help people understand why we're seeing this. So the cost of video games looks like it's going to be swinging anywhere between $50 to $90 on Nintendo. And I know people have been like, $90 for a game? This is preposterous. Look, I get it, but I want people to understand something. We have been spoiled on the pricing of software. When I was a kid, growing up with the original NES, the cost of games were $40 to $50. This is 30 years ago. All right. Atari games were about $25. Nintendo games were always about $35 to $50, depending on what game it was. And for 30 years, the cost of games hasn't really pushed up in line with the cost of production. You've got new technologies, you've got larger teams to help develop these games. I'm honestly not surprised that Nintendo was asking $90 on a game. To be blunt, this is from a gamer's point of view. It's just, I understand it's a sticker shock. I get it. But if you want quality games to keep being cranked out, that money's got to come somewhere. And Nintendo charging $90 right now, I think it's par for the course. Like, $50 in 1990 is $121 today. And I mean, that was the average cost of video games back in the 90s. So this is kind of where I'm like, yeah, it sucks that they're asking for that kind of cost. But at the same time, if you adjust for inflation, it's justified. It's still coming in undervalued by about $40. But that's just my spin on it. So, I mean, what do you think? So,
We had something like this before with, like, obviously we've been mad before in the past with consoles coming out. The 3DS. When it came out, it was roughly around $300, and we cried out, too expensive. Lower the price. And obviously they said no. But then, all of a sudden, we didn't start buying it. That's the thing. We did not buy it because it was too expensive. Nintendo was forced to take the price down to $250. Okay, thank you. So yeah, $250, and then we could see something similar to this. I highly doubt it, because obviously the game console price is, in my opinion, is fine, unless you're in America, that is. I say even the Europeans have it harder than you Americans, because their price is $600 for the console in euros. Yes, that's way worse.
Point of interjection. You see, because X is quite good at planning for situations, he asked about if I had prices for the Nintendo Switch in South Africa. In South Africa, the Nintendo Switch in the equivalent of dollars is $657.
Bloody hell. Bro, that's even worse.
Outside of like America and like Canada, and I don't know who else uses the same system as America does. I think, Suba, like you and I specifically are in the fortunate position where our VAT is added onto the price that you see on the shelf.
Yes, it is, yes.
So at least we know exactly what we're paying.
Yeah. Here, it's going to be £400.
Yeah, so even if it has a $449.99 whatever price tag, there's also the 6.1% tax plus the whatever percent variable tariff tax that's going to be applied to it depending on what country of origin it has. And even with that, compared to these global numbers that I'm hearing right now, it seems like this rubber band snaps hard to us American fans, but that's just bringing us onto a global scale.
Yeah. And I guarantee you now, maybe in the next, I'll say, 30 years or even higher, the games are going to be like, I don't want to keep being negative though. They're going to be $100, okay, the games completely. And then there'll be a crash that will happen, and then they'll have to put the prices down. Yay! You know? But yeah, I don't want to think like that though.
Well, just building on what X said about like the global market, I've said it in the Discord, and the tariffs that have been imposed, and I don't want to get too political in this, but I apologize if I do, are going to have to be adjusted over the next year or two, because markets are going to shift. If imports into the US drop by, I think it's as little as 25% or something, the US economy is going to crash, because the US relies so heavily on imports of certain raw materials. Just an example, because it's something that they need from South Africa, is palladium for car parts. The majority of their palladium comes from South Africa. If South Africa decides to turn around and say, okay, you want to impose these tariffs on us because we're on 30%, I think, and we're just not going to export to you. We'll export to China and they can have our raw materials. Although I will say Nintendo did mess up by moving their manufacturing to Vietnam, because they shouldn't have tried to fake out the tariff announcement, hoping that they would be lower. But also there's other ways to circumnavigate it. So tariffs could be lowered because they might, although manufacturing's happened in Vietnam, they might send them to a fulfillment center in Japan and ship them out from Japan, because your tariffs are on your wholesale cost, which $450 isn't the wholesale cost. So although it'll be a little bit more expensive, it won't be drastically more expensive. Either way, whether it's shipped out of Vietnam or Japan.
I like the fact that we went from cost of games to the cost of the console again.
Well, the thing is, it ties into it, right? Because we're going to go into another recession, I think, because of this.
Yeah, we are too.
But also, one positive that'll come out of these games prices increasing is, I believe, indie is going to become king, and a lot more people are going to be playing indie games, finding games that they fall in love with, that they never thought they would fall in love with.
I mean, I mentioned the rubber band effect of the pricing. I feel like the reason we keep jumping from the cartridge or the game pricing to console pricing is that this is all going to be relevant. If they're going to tariff the price of the console coming in, then why aren't they going to tariff the games and every accessory and everything that's coming out of the same company and distribution point?
But that's the thing. I don't know if that the tariff has anything to do with the initial pricing, because Nintendo had stated their price tags for everything, including the pre-orders. Then the tariffs went into effect. Then everything went, oh, hang on a second. Like they had, it looked like this was going to be the pricing from the jump, and it didn't have anything to do with the tariffs. So
I think Cheat covered that. I think that was a misstep. I think originally they said that they were calculating that, and they made a move to back that, but it didn't turn out the way that they were expecting. And now they have to be like, oh, wait, hold on a second. We need some time to reassess.
Gurren, I've got to ask, do you see a price discrepancy between what is usually the MSRP for the States versus what you get in Hawaii? Because I know you're affected by some laws that are in effect within the U.S. So do you notice any price differences when you go shopping over in your neck of the woods?
I mean, our milk's pretty expensive. Honestly, I don't really pay much attention to that kind of stuff, but I can definitely say like milk here for like a gallon, you're looking at like maybe like at the cheapest, like even if it's not on sale, it's like $5, and then like other places have for like $7 a gallon or something like that. Like, so I mean that's one thing. Other than that, like
did you notice the cost of Switch was higher? Did you notice the cost of your games are a little higher?
No. Switch, I think, was still like around the same price like when I first bought it. What was it, like $299 or something? So nothing different there. Non-Switch related stuff or like game related stuff. Like it's just mostly like food, if anything. Like, you know, like those Taco Bell or something advertisements. They're like, hey, yeah, get this for like $5 at participating stores. And then you're here in Hawaii, it's like, man, this thing costs like $7.
I think the range from like $70 to $90 for games is actually pretty decent. Like, if you look at other consoles like Xbox and PlayStation, and I also did say this in the Discord, I think it might have been in our Show Ideas channel, which unfortunately you guys don't have access to, but on other consoles, you always, with newer games now, you always have 3 editions. You got your standard, your gold or the equivalent, and your deluxe.
That's what I buy.
What, you buy deluxe? Damn, man's balling.
Well, it depends. It depends. Sometimes the second tier one is called a deluxe. So it's not sometimes. Like Monster Hunter Wilds, I did buy the $89.99 version of it. So, you know, just saying.
So I think Nintendo got that right, because they've got essentially like flat prices for games. Yeah, sure, Donkey Kong might be $70 or the equivalent, and Mario Kart might be $90 or the equivalent. But at least you know you're getting the full game, all of its content. Obviously, DLC not included. The DLC is an optional thing, but at least game-wise, so you don't have some guys having like exclusive, you know, digital deluxe Founders Edition missions, or, you know, cosmetics, or for Mario Kart, for example, vehicles, characters, etc. So you know you're essentially getting what you pay for in its entirety.
Here's the thing: people were griping about the price tag of the games, right? And I feel the need to point out that games like Marvel vs. Capcom Infinite, they piecemeal costumes and characters. To get the game, it was like $50. All right, $50, $60. All right, okay, cool. To get all of the content was an additional $180.
I don't know it's that much.
Yeah. They piecemealed everything. You can get the packs, okay, woohoo, bundle packs. That'll drop the cost by a bit, but it doesn't give you everything. But if you were to buy everything individually, at full, and mind you, this is years after it came out, they're still asking $180 for all of the DLC.
Yeah, it is a bit crazy.
Yeah, and nobody complained about that. I didn't hear any rumblings about that, and I was following this game until it came out. I was like, oh, you want that much? No, thank you. I'm gonna just hard pass. And they're not the only games to do it. They're just one of the ones I know of. But there's a couple of other games that piecemeal content like that, and you end up paying 3 or 4 times the price just to get everything. And I'm not talking about some of those lewd ones. You get your minds out of the gutters. But it's one of those things that it's a sticker shock because nobody does it openly. But to be fair, it's been done more egregiously. This you're getting, for as far as we know, you're getting pretty much everything from the jump. And again, as stated, if you were to compare the pricing of games back in the 90s when nobody really cared about the cost of the game versus what it costs to make today, we're still underpaying video games by a large margin. So a $90 game I'm okay with, because it just means that game companies can actually pay their employees, and maybe actually we can get less buggier games and not have them cut corners.
Yeah, I guess that's true, but they better serve that though. They have to do that though, because if I'm paying like $90, the game better be perfect. I'm not buying a game that is not perfect. Okay.
Listen, Nintendo, you hear this? Suba has very high standards of your games. Let's not disappoint Suba, because we don't want Suba to be disappointed. He is a bean, and he deserves to be protected in all aspects. So perfect games is what we expect.
Yes. Nintendo, look, we love Nintendo, but Nintendo does not love you. That's the term I use all the time.
Yeah, well, that's also something I want to touch on just real quickly, because it's like still in the same vein. So unless you're in Draco's camp, which, I mean, a very valid camp to be in, where you're a staunch purchaser of physical games, if you're not in that camp, you do have sort of a reprieve, which I don't think I've seen other consoles do, but you could buy a digital game for slightly cheaper. Of course, you would then need an SD card and stuff if you want to hold all your games at once, but that's a bridge you'll have to cross when you get there. But also, Nintendo needs to do better with their discounts, because, for example, I don't think, if we're just taking the most recent Pokemon games, I don't think Scarlet and Violet nor Sword and Shield got any discounts. They weren't on discounts at any point. So if they could have like more frequent discounts, not big discounts, I'm not saying give it like 50% off every 2 weeks, but have like discounts for these bigger titles, like your first party titles. So like once every 6 months, for example, I don't think is unreasonable, and like 10 to 15% off I think is good enough for quite a few people to then pick it up. Especially if they want to join into these franchises of games. Like, for example, if someone hasn't bought Zelda Tears of the Kingdom yet, put it up for 15% off and people will buy it. They can try it out. If they don't like it, they can say, oh, well, at least I didn't pay full price. I think that's just something that you get better on.
My last thought is just like the accessories in general. Joy-Cons got more expensive. They're like $90. You got that camera. You got what I'm kind of looking forward to, that wireless GameCube controller, which I hope works with everything on the Switch too, and not just like, the GameCube games. And and then, those micro SD express cards that you want to get if you want to expand your memory, because some of those can be quite a pretty penny to pay as well, Oh, and one more thing, I am excited for the Bravely Default remaster. I am very mad though that it is on a Game Key card as well.
You know what? I'll give you this, Nintendo. I'm very happy that the regular Switch 1 Joy-Cons and the Pro Controller is compatible with the Switch 2. Bravo! Big claps for that. I love that. Even the Pro, the new Pro controller is looking clean. It's got a mic, and thank you, Nintendo. It's got headphone jack. That's it. Thank you. Thank you. Yes, that's it. Thank you, Nintendo, for that.
USB-C on top of the Switch. I wonder if you could use an external SSD, because if you're gonna spend the money, you can get some second-hand like external SSDs for like some pretty good prices, and they're still in pretty good condition. And then my second point, the Joy-Con grip thing that you get with the Switch 2. That's a charging grip, which you didn't get with the Switch 1. The Switch 1 was just like a hunk of plastic, which I think is a really cool addition too.
If the new Joy-Cons work with the old Switch, I'm there. Even if I can't afford the new console, I'm there to buy a new set of Joy-Cons just so I stop drifting to the left.
With all that said, I appreciate you all for hanging with us for this long, because this was a good one. We went through quite a bit. We've gone through the good, we've gone through the bad, we've gone through the ugly. Overall, anything, what are your thoughts, your concerns about the Switch 2 presentation, the Switch 2 in its whole, the cost of the games, anything that we've touched about, anything that we didn't talk about, please, by all means, let us know down below. And, as always, we'll see you in the next video.
Also, why are the new games red?